What's been your biggest year of sales?
Just over 300 million in 2021. My biggest career sale to date was $56.5 million. This year, we're looking to do closer to $1 billion. I learned by failing. And, sometimes that is the best way to learn. I'm self-taught. I figured it out. Now have the right people in place to obviously grow my business, scale into another state. Hopefully one day be able to retire or something a little bit.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Permission to Shine. It's your friend and host, Andrew Nemani. Thank you so much for being here. As an LA resident, the recent fires were really hard to watch. Hearing stories of so many friends losing everything, it made me really want to draw some light to the story and paint the facts of what's happened and where LA is going to go from here. And there's no one more well-positioned to talk about it with than Tracy Tutor. She's one of the most successful real estate agents in the world. She's based out of LA, which is also where she grew up. She's the author of Fear is Just a Four-Letter Word, and you probably know her from the famous show $1 Million Listings, where she did several seasons as their first female cast member. She's incredible. She's unfiltered and very candid. I love how she gets vulnerable, talking about how women are tearing down other women and how we can fix that. Her strength is her confidence and where she got that and how other people can emulate it. I loved hearing about her strategies for delegation and where to start when you want to build a team when it's time to do that. I'm fascinated with that and how you maintain the quality of it. So she gave some great tips there. Tracy, thank you for coming on, for talking to me about the LA wildfires, for getting vulnerable, for having fun. Guys, if you enjoy this episode, do me a favor, hit the follow button wherever you listen to your podcast. We've got the video on Spotify, so that's a great place to do it. It'll help me ensure I can continue to get guests like Tracy Tutor and bring them to you all. I have to thank our sponsor, Ajax Partners. If you're a company looking to grow your sales efforts, Ajax is made up of the best salespeople around the world. They will help do outsource sales. They'll also help you hire some of the best salespeople. Reach out to them, Andrew at ajax.partners. That's AJAX.partners. If you've got feedback for the podcast or for me, reach out, Andrew at permissiontoshine.org. Please enjoy this incredible conversation with Tracy Tutor. Okay, so the fires have obviously been consuming all of our minds and hearts in Los Angeles the last few weeks. What's your experience been throughout it?
A lot of emotion. I think first shock, I was in Texas, transitioning from my old brokerage to my new brokerage. And my CEO, Cody, who's with us, was here. Was with me, and the fires broke out. So we immediately flew home at 6 o'clock in the morning. Cody was evacuated. And
Where does Cody live?
In the Palisades.
Oh, geez, I'm sorry.
So he had moved in with me, and then, we started taking on other evacuees and animals and dogs, and that's just what we walked into. And, obviously 24 hours later, we were notified that Cody had lost his home. And so,
oh my gosh.
Directly obviously affected someone incredibly close to me, and also during a time for us professionally where we needed to be fully engaged. And I think between him and I, the anxiety, wanting to help everybody that we could, provide different opportunities, and also navigate, what some people like to say, there's blood in the water. It's time to list, or it's time to start scraping up land and purchasing. And it didn't feel right. It didn't feel good to know that there were some people that wanted to take advantage of the misfortune of everybody that, suffered from the fires. So I think that piece of it, while we are considered sort of essential workers during this time, there were moments where I wanted to pull back and say, I don't want to be involved in this. While I want to help people, the price gouging, or, people saying, any piece of Palisades property you can sell me, I'm in. We'll buy it in bulk. It just didn't feel good. While we had some people in the community, and a lot of the community, raising awareness, raising funds, giving their time to help the victims, there was also, to contrary, other people that were taking advantage of those opportunities. And that's a hard pill to swallow.
Where do you even start to begin to help your clients? Like, what were their biggest needs?
I mean, it was immediate housing, right? So
everyone moving into the Tutor house.
Right. There's a lack of inventory, obviously, in the market. So I think, obviously, landlords saw that as an opportunity to capitalize on these losses and started raising their prices. And then you've got loose restrictions on what we should be doing and what we're allowed to do. As a community of brokers, agents, we've never been through something like this before. So, the penal code was in effect. We weren't allowed to price gouge. There were penalties associated with that. We didn't know what the real regulations were, and we're still not 100% clear. That made us all a little bit standoffish because on one hand, we're here to serve our clients, but on another hand, we're also here to help displaced families who just lost everything. So to jack up these prices, by 100% of what they would have been worth prior to January 7th was a conversation that we had to have with many of our clients and say, we just simply won't do it. And in the recent week, we've flat out turned down listing certain properties that we felt were unrealistic or unfair to the current market.
I saw conservative estimates, like 5,000 homes were taken.
Yeah.
It's between $35 and $45 billion of damage.
I mean, I've heard as high as 60.
60 billion?
Yeah. And I think, here's the thing. The infrastructure is gone. For these people that want to immediately start their rebuilding process, and obviously Trump coming into town and talking about removing restrictions and allowing the permits to go through federally, entire Palisades and Malibu, it all has to be cleared of the debris. Then you have to start putting the infrastructure back in. The electrical needs to go underground. These are all undertakings that a city would never have taken on. They have to. So that's the first step. And then the rebuilding process begins. And I think people are really still unsure if they can sit through that for what could be 3 years, 5 years, 6 years, people that might be able to come out of the ground in the next 90 days and build in 12 months. Do you really want to be in a community and have your house rebuilt for you where everything else is like an apocalyptic
Wouldn't that be weird?
Nuclear war zone?
Be the first house done?
Well, that's the thing. And there's not enough construction workers. There's not enough GCs. There's not enough subs. So we're getting, outreach from different countries, Canada builders thinking about coming in and setting up shop here for the next 5 years, different builders from Arizona, surrounding states. It's going to be a massive undertaking that, Los Angeles as a city has never seen.
When let's just say conservatively, 5,000 homes are gone, what kind of vacancy exists in the market now in LA?
Oh, it's impossible. We're working with displaced families where we've written up to 8 offers for a particular family, and 8 have been rejected. It's a lot of grueling, exhausting work for us. And we're hopeful that, people will begin to see this settle down and prices will kind of come back down, or, local authorities will demand that, the price gouging stops happening. So we'll see more inventory in the marketplace, or we won't. And people will have to transition into being purchasers, which then floods the market with demand for listing opportunities. So we're beginning to see some people go, as much as I loved my community, I'm not sure that I'm committed to what could be a 5-year plan. My kids are in different phases in their lives, or they will be. Right now, they're 8. They're going to be 12 by the time we're back. And that's a really unsettling feeling. So there's a lot of back and forth of maybe we should just be buying, and not enough inventory to provide for that. Typical supply demand.
Are you seeing people, because you have operations in Texas now?
Yes.
With your real estate. Are you sending people to Texas?
I'm definitely starting to get those calls from, I think, families and people that are a little bit frustrated with Los Angeles as a whole. I think this fire was sort of for these particular families, the straw that broke the camel's back.
I feel that. I'm even waking up, I was just telling Cody, I was in San Francisco for 2 weeks, and I'm like, it's kind of nice here. Got a beautiful girl there, good food, clean air.
Yeah,
you start to think about it a little bit.
It is, and it's a challenging time, and LA is going through a really significant change, I think, since COVID, and coming into 2025, I think we were all hoping the market would start to improve, and at least from an economic standpoint, and here we are. Poor California navigating, one disaster after another. And with all the insurance companies being gone, how do we insure these places when people actually do go to sell? These are all areas of massive concern for families that either want out of LA or families that have to buy and can't insure their homes. I mean, as you can imagine, you've seen the news. A lot of people are underinsured or not insured at all.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, it really is. And it's been difficult in the market for the last couple of years with insurance because so many insurance companies left the state of California. So we were already having a difficult time insuring properties, in higher fire zones. Now, I mean, forget about it,
So like State Farm's the biggest real estate insurance company
Yeah.
in the country.
Gone.
So State Farm says, I'm not covering you on
Yeah.
your $10 million house. I then go do the FAIR plan.
Yes.
Is that correct? Which is like the state of California's insurance policy.
Correct. And essentially you're covered up to like $3-ish million.
$3 million. Wow. What's
And
the
so-
average sale price of a home that you're selling?
Oh, I mean, you're looking at $8 to $15 million homes across the Palisades.
But you,
Oh, me specifically, I fluctuate between the 10 and 20.
10 and 20. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you cover up to 3. It's like,
It doesn't
Yeah.
math. The math ain't mathin'.
no,
I'll tell you
it's
that
not.
much. Some people are self-insuring that obviously can afford to do that because the premiums of certain companies that have remained are so high that they're opting to self-insure. And it really depends on where you're located. If the value of your land is more valuable than your home, then you might be able to get away with doing a FAIR plan and having a potential secondary policy. But it's not a pretty time here in our world.
And the FAIR plan is like double the premium of your normal plan, I hear.
Yeah.
And what I didn't realize is that the FAIR plan is just made up of like 300 insurance companies
Mhm.
who all pitch in.
Mhm.
So they have an investment in this and their profits are equal to the percentage of the investment that they have.
Correct.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And they have like $300 million in their reserves.
Yep.
And it's estimated that they're going to need to pay out like at least $8 billion on
Yeah. So
this fire.
it-
And again, math ain't mathin'.
Math ain't mathin'. It's going to be a really challenging time. And who knows what happens at the end of 12 months. Right now, you're not allowed to drop. The insurance companies are not allowed to drop their clients or their policies for 12 months. But I don't see some significant change in where we are in the next 12 months, certainly as it relates to the fires and, of course, people's home and their ability to insure and the topography in this town and the wildlife and the nature. And obviously the brush is a problem in many places that people want to live here. I mean, it's why LA and California is such an incredible state and why people want to live here. We have great weather. We have beautiful views. We're by the ocean. These areas typically struggle from, having to deal with being in a high fire zone. Being born and raised here, I don't think that there's ever been a time in this city where I've been more concerned for
really?
the state.
Wow. What's a misconception you think people have about Tracy Tutor?
That I don't work.
What do you mean?
I think people
You're
think
constantly working. We'd be like hanging out on Sunday and you're just sitting there like rapid fire texting.
I know.
Handling the biz.
I think people think that because of the way I grew up, I might not have the same work ethic that others do. But I think
Interesting.
once you know me and you know the hours that I put in and the amount of travel that I do and the hustle that I have, people are always like, I don't know how you go at the pace you go. And I just kind of say to myself, well, I just go until I can't go anymore. I can sleep when I'm dead.
Where did that drive come from?
Yeah. I think it's my dad, growing up being sort of a first generation Armenian American. His grandparents or my grandparents came here when they were 9. So I think my dad kind of growing up in Van Nuys with a pretty tough upbringing and a background in construction has always been really tough. And so he was up before anyone and, worked his tail off and was always really tough. And so I think just that was born into me. I got my first job when I was 15. That was actually my first job, was my first commission job as well. I sold suits in the mall. Did really well. I was like, I'm good at sales. This is maybe my wheelhouse.
Was he creative?
My dad, no.
That's your mom.
No, my mom's creative. My dad is like a numbers guy. He sees numbers in his head like nobody ever has.
He's a developer, right? He built the Aria in Vegas. and-
Yeah, he's a publicly traded construction company. So everything from infrastructure, bridges, tunnels, hotels, you name it, he's pretty much done it. And it's always been in his head. He still to this day does not have a computer. Like they print out his emails for him and then he dictates it back. And he does not believe in Zoom. He does not believe in technology. He believes in meeting with people in front of them, and that's just the nature of who he is. But he's definitely a numbers guy. Like, I don't know how he does it. It's magic.
I think you got your business hustle from your dad.
Yeah.
But you have this wittiness and this kind of fire about you.
That's my mom.
That's your mom.
Yeah, for sure.
Cheryl.
Is a feisty lady. And
I need to have lunch with Cheryl. We FaceTimed her once.
Yeah.
And I still remember that. I'm like, she is... Man, if she was any younger,
she is
Cheryl, come on, baby.
I mean, Cheryl is like 78 going on 40. She's got a ton of energy, always has. She loves to travel. She's also a Leo, like me, born the day after me, a few years earlier, but August 12th, I'm August 11th. So
I wouldn't like that. That's like competition.
Oh, yeah. She's full fire. Every time it's like my birthday and I'm like, I'm going out of town. She's like, that's interesting. You're going out of town during my birthday. And I'm like, well, it's also mine. But she's she definitely has that piece of me for sure. That's where I get it. She's also a very young 78. I mean, she's raising my brother who passed away, his daughter. So she's got a 16-year-old just like I do. Whoa. At 78. Her and Horst have been raising Kate, my niece, since she was one years old.
Whoa. When did your brother pass away?
Right after I had Scarlett, I think she was maybe 4 weeks old, and I got the call that he had passed, and
I'm sorry.
And Kate turned a year the day later. So
is that his firstborn?
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, he had struggled from alcohol and drug addiction for many, many years, pretty much since he was 18. And had been sober for the last 5 years and had a relationship with a woman. And I think the relationship was a touch toxic. They ended up having a baby together, Kate, my niece. And I think they were struggling and having problems. But I think ultimately he passed because his body had sort of given up on him. Like he had heart disease he didn't know about. And things hadn't been working for a long time, and I think it went unchecked. And so one particular night, he had a fight with his girlfriend, and he did not wake up the next morning. And after doing an autopsy, we discovered that he had terrible heart disease, and that was the reason for his passing.
Wow. What was your relationship with him?
He was 10 years older than me. So, when I was a kid, he was obviously moving out of the house. But we remained close over the years, and obviously when he was struggling with alcohol and drug addiction, we were there very much to support him. It was so sad that by the time that he had gotten sober, he had done too much damage to his body to stop it. And candidly didn't take care of himself or get regular checkups, so they never discovered the heart disease, which he had probably had for 10 years. So he died in his early 40s.
You have other siblings?
I do. I have so many.
Really?
I have my sister Kristen, who's 3.5 years younger, and she's from my mom and my dad and myself. And then when they divorced, my dad remarried my ex-stepmom, Kim, and she had a daughter named Skylar with my dad. And then she also had a son prior to that, Derek, who is so Skylar's in her late 20s. Derek's almost 35 now. And then they divorced. And then my dad remarried his now wife, Alia. And I have twin brothers who are 9 years old.
Whoa.
So from 9 to 49.
Hold on. I need a family tree
of
that.
It's a full on.
My gosh. Did you bring one with you?
It's complicated.
You lost me there.
I know. Just 9 to 49. I have 9-year-old little twin brothers. Crazy.
Wow. Do you guys all get together?
Yeah, we do.
I love that. I've always wanted Christmas. I'm in a super tight family myself, and it's like I always just wanted more though.
Yeah.
When people ask me how many kids I want, I jokingly I'm like 7. Like I want Christmas to be fucking crazy.
There was a time, not so much anymore with my stepmom now. They spend a lot of time in Aspen in Florida. But prior to her, I mean, Christmas was like whoever my dad was dating, their children, his ex-wife Kim, my stepbrothers and sisters, and then my mom and my dad and Horst, my stepdad. I mean, it was like a very funny holiday season at my house. We were like,
imagine.
So wait, who are you bringing this year, Dad? And then all the, my mom and my ex-stepmom are actually still very close. So Interesting dynamic, but that's how I grew up. When my parents got divorced when I was 10, my dad moved down the street. And at that time, 1985, like that was not, friendly divorces was not where it was at. And my dad moved down the street. They remained super friendly. And luckily, I grew up that way. So I try now to have the same relationship with my ex-husband. Not that there aren't struggles or issues that we have from time to time, but, I was at dinner with him last night celebrating my 19-year-old's birthday, giving him a little shit,
Your kids have been exposed to so much. Like
Yeah.
one thing I noticed about you is like you don't hide much from them.
No.
You're very open with them.
Mm-hmm.
Your life has been on display through obviously your television show and everything else that you do. Do you ever have fears of that? What's the downside to it?
I've always sort of marched to the beat of my own drum when it's come to parenting because, very early on when the kids were young, it was like, here's what you're supposed to do. You need to get into this school. You got to hire this person. Like all the craziness that comes along with, having toddlers in Los Angeles and in a town that obviously breeds a lot of money. So
it's a hard place to raise kids, I think.
A little difficult, yeah. And after I think the kids turned like 10 and I was like, you know what? I've gone the route that everyone told me to go. I was, trying to work and volunteer at the school and be on the hospitality committee and do all the things that I'm supposed to do. And I was running myself ragged to the point where I was like, this isn't serving my kids and it's certainly not serving me. And I remember I went and sat down with the head of school and I said, I can't do this anymore. Like I was in tears. I said, I feel like a terrible mom. And there was a female head of school at the time and she was like, it's not your job to. That's why you pay tuition to go here. So give yourself permission to go to work. You just got divorced. Go do you. They're going to be fine. I have them from 8 to 3. And she just gave me permission to get back to what I felt I was good at, and that was being a parent to my children when they got home from school. I don't think that, it was as important for me to be in the classroom. And I think I've always believed in being truthful with my kids and, let them make mistakes while they're home with me instead of shield them from everything and expose them to an entirely new world when they turn 18 and they're not prepared to handle it. So to me, that means if I'm working until 10 o'clock at night, I might not be able to have, dinner with my kids. I might not be able to be at every equestrian match that Scarlett's riding in. It's just not possible. But I do carve out that one-on-one time with them to have with them, and we have incredibly honest conversations. And I think that's why they're two little savage young females that I think ultimately will be successful and, when they're entering this new phase in their life and learn how to be independent. That's the kind of women I want to raise.
Mm-hmm. You've definitely done it. And I've heard you talk about like women should be supporting women more often, and they're not.
Mm.
It's like they're the ones who so often are backstabbing and tearing each other down.
Yeah, I've struggled with that a lot, particularly on social media. I'm not for everyone. A friend of mine says, I might not be everybody's cup of tea, but I'm someone's shot of tequila.
Which is, I love that.
It's
so true. If you're for everybody,
then you're for nobody.
Yes.
So, from my standpoint, I take a pretty strong stance on social media that I can be not just one thing, but many things. I can be successful and a boss and an entrepreneur and sexy and funny and self-deprecating.
Keep going.
And all of those things. And I think certain women that follow me that, for whatever reason, don't want to stop following me, struggle with me. How could I be sexy and smart and a good mom at the same time? What do you mean? I can be all of those things and 4 more over. So, the hateful comments or the stop dressing like your daughters or your daughters, must be embarrassed by you. And it's, my daughters actually have chimed in on that chat because from their standpoint, they see me every day. They know what kind of mom I am. And, to attack a woman and her skills as a mother and, the one that technically supports her children financially, I'm expected to do a lot of things and I show up. I just don't appreciate women who tear each other down for being in different phases in their life. And I've always been like a correct the crown kind of girl, like girl, it's a little tilted. Let me fix it for you. Like build each other up, support each other, because I don't think it's about men anymore. I actually think it's women that can be holding us back more so than men. Generationally speaking, and obviously, what people are accustomed to and how they grew up, there's a universe of Gen Xers that still believe that women are meant to be at home making dinner for their children and going to soccer practices, and we're so much more than that. And I want our young girls to see that. I want them to see me work. I want them to see me doing the things that I'm doing, because I want to raise young women that actually believe in going against the grain when it comes to that. And that's just going to take time. It's unfortunate, but I believe that if we keep doing that and we keep supporting each other and keep striving for more, then hopefully in the coming generations and my daughter's generations will be different.
You are successful in so many arenas. And I think that when people see you, they think like, oh, like Tracy's just got this perfect life. And I'm sure people just idolize you, right? And want to be, I'm sure there's a lot of people who want to be you. Does that ever put an insane amount of pressure on you or self-criticism?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many people want to be me.
No,
but,
come on.
I think that there's a lot of women that celebrate my independence and how I choose to run my business and how I choose to live personally and authentically, particularly in social media. But I think that it's also a challenge for me, because I think the expectation that I put on myself to be all of those things becomes that much more heightened, because I feel responsible. And I feel like, there are women that want to talk to me. There are women that want to sit down with me, that want to work for me. And they want to know, how do you do it? And it's like, I don't always do it. I can't always be perfect. I have moments where I'm just hit a wall. I'm angry and disgusted and tired of my industry and tired of like holding all of this up on my shoulders.
Sure,
and you want to put it down, but there is a immense sense of pressure to keep it going. And I try to have an awareness around it, and I try to give myself breaks, whether it's like heading to Mexico for 2 or 3 days, or, getting a massage on the weekends, or just like going and watching my daughter ride her horse, which was a great passion of mine. Those are like little releases for me to sort of bring me back down to earth.
I want to back up.
Yeah.
You started in theater. Were you aspiring to be an actress?
I grew up dancing and singing and acting from the time I was, like 8. I was even in a singing group when I was a teenager.
Can you sing?
No.
Here, go ahead. Come on.
No, I genuinely.
Come on.
I can't. I cannot sing.
I was listening to Ariana Grande podcast on the way here. She's on Smartless.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm just waiting for her to sing. Like, if a singer's on a podcast, like, you don't have to sing for your supper, but damn, I want to hear it.
She's so good. I love that podcast, by the way. And so I had that background. So I went to USC for undergrad and was a theater major, and, had done a few things, and, immediately came out of SC and, had an agent and was going on auditions. And I remember an actress friend of mine that had some extraordinary success early on in her 20s. I was like, so what's it like? You're like on like a TV show on ABC, like, is it everything you like wanted it to be? And she was like, it's a business. Like, it doesn't feel as creative or as fulfilling as I thought it was going to be. And that was a trip to me. And I was like, all I ever wanted to do, I never really wanted to be famous. I just wanted to act. And I loved being on stage. And so that was rewarding for me.
What about it? Like being on stage, why was that so attractive?
It was a
you?
high to me. It was an absolute high. I'd almost throw up every time before I would perform, but I'd get out there and
you get a lot of nerves
and shake it off. And it was very freeing and liberating. And so I really enjoyed the creative process surrounding that and what it did for, the fear that I had and overcoming certain fears and being able to act while fearful at the same time. And I think that fed into me sort of making the decision that I didn't want to wake up and still be auditioning at 40 years old. I wanted to be financially independent. That became more important to me than the creative process that acting was bringing to my life. So I made the decision to get my real estate license, and I never looked back. I will say, though, I do believe that part of the reason that I became successful in real estate has a lot to do with the background that I had in acting. All I ever did was have to sell myself. Well, it's not any different in what I do for a living now. So I attribute a lot of that to my background and studying acting.
The high you got from being on stage, do you think that was because you were trying to escape something in your reality?
I don't know so much if it was about that. It was something that I grew up loving doing from the time that I was a little kid. Every summer I was in a workshop. We were on stage all the time dancing. I, ended up having that singing group. And
that brings you joy. You're smiling really big
right
now.
Because, it was five girls in a singing group. And it was right around the time, the Spice Girls had come out and we were like, we're better than them. And I told my dad, I'm not going to college. And he's like, yes, you are. I'm like, I'm going to be in a singing group. And when I accept my first Grammy, I am not going to thank you on the stage. I was feisty.
Wow, shocker.
But it was fun.
Are we surprised, guys? Tracy Tutor was feisty as a kid.
It was
God bless you,
it was
darling.
fun for me. Do I think I was trying to escape something? No. I think I genuinely appreciated the high. Certain people dive out of planes.
Exactly.
Others like to get on stage and perform. And I loved the creative process of working across from another actor and connecting on that level and finding a character. And that to me was fun. Well, guess what? I do that almost every day. Yeah.
So you go find success in real estate. Did
Yes.
that come pretty easily to you?
No, I worked my ass off. I remember my first year I sat down with the first manager of the office that hired me. And he was like, I've told this story a few times. What do you think, you're going to make this year? And I said, well, I have to make 90,000 in order to survive. And he's like, most agents make 30. And I go, that won't do. And he was like, you're hired. I don't know if it's your cockiness or what, but the fact that you just said that won't do leads me to believe that you have the grit for this business. And sure enough, 1 year later, I made 30,000. And, the next few years after that, I struggled to get people to, hire me or work with me because I was young. I was in my early 20s. And I had a lot of connections around this town, but people don't trust a 22-year-old with the greatest asset they have, right? So it took some time. I joined a team. I navigated working around people that were better than me. I surrounded myself with people that I admired. And, eventually, I want to say by the time I was 25 or 26, I'd made my first $500,000. And I was like, holy shit. I never thought.
Cumulatively over the span
over
of 5
the year.
years, over 1 year.
Yeah. And
You made $500,000?
Yeah.
At 25 or 26?
Yeah. It was a good year.
Whoa.
Yeah. It was, that's when I was like, oh my God, I could actually have, not graduating from USC with a theater degree doesn't really set you up for having massive financial success. Most of my friends were out of the business school. They were financial, backgrounds, and they were going to work their way up at Goldman or, JP Morgan, or they were entrepreneurs starting massive businesses. And, I never saw myself as having that kind of financial success. I just wanted to be able to take care of myself. Once I realized that, what I did for a living happened to have limitless opportunity financially.
There's no ceiling.
There was no ceiling for someone like me, but there's also no barrier of entry in our business. You could be dumb as dirt and get your license.
Kind of like podcasting.
Right? Right? So, there's a lot of people out there that, get into this business because it doesn't have a ceiling, but they don't necessarily have the grit or the effort that they want to put into actually getting there. And, that's why I do what I do. And that's why I mentor, young women coming out of college, whether they want to become real estate agents or whether they, want to be entrepreneurs or start their own businesses. I've enjoyed, doing that in the past, and I still do it today on some level. I've got a group that I work with called Estate Elite, and, I'm doing courses with them and talking, with groups of women and men about what I do and how I've achieved my success. And that's been rewarding for me as well.
You started to find success individually, obviously, and then you start to expand, right? You hire a team.
Correct.
And I'm trying to figure out, how do you scale? Because you have a very high bar for what you consider to be good quality work.
Yeah. I mean, scaling is a really interesting topic for me because remember, I didn't come from a background in business. I didn't know
They didn't
how
teach
to.
you in theater class how to
Yeah, I
scale?
didn't know how to build a business. I didn't know what I was doing. I learned by failing. And I learned
Mm.
what not to do after I did it. So, it was like a process of elimination. I'm like, oh, well, that didn't work. Or hiring that assistant, I did that too soon. I should have hired a marketing person first. Or, expanding my team, for example, without having proper systems in place. I did all of these things in the wrong order. But I learned by failing. And, sometimes that is the best way to learn. I'm self-taught. I figured it out. And, now have the right people in place to obviously grow my business, scale into another state, potentially more to come there. And hopefully one day be able to retire or something a little bit. I mean, I'm going to have to figure that out because I can't keep going. I'm like a hamster in a cage.
Do you think you could actually retire, though?
I don't know about retire.
When you say, I want to go to Mexico for 2 days, I'm like, 2 days? Go for 6.
I know. 2 days feels like about all I can handle right now.
Yeah,
right,
I don't think, Cody, could she actually retire? Cody says no.
By the way, neither could you.
Cody is her CEO.
Yeah. So, I think we love what we do when we're surrounded by, great people. It makes our job exciting and fun, and every day is different because typically our relationships with our long-term clients, we deal with them. They go away for a little bit. We stay in touch. They come back. They want to sell their next piece of real estate or find something new in a different market. And it makes what we do exciting and not monotonous. But by that same token, we wake up every day and we don't really know what's coming. And so I think we now finally have those systems in place, the right people on the team.
But what does that mean? Like, so for somebody who is starting to hire their team, like what would you say to focus on and look at?
First and foremost, get a business coach to help build the correct way. I didn't ever hire a coach doing any of those things. So, and if you don't come from a background or any like college study level courses that involve like building a business and having a plan, then you really don't know what you're doing. So if you don't take a course in it, talk to a business coach, put an effective 5-year plan in place on the steps that you need to take in order to do it. And if, for me, it meant putting actual systems in place, like back end systems that, my agents could work from that allowed them to be out in the field more selling rather than in front of a computer, doing paperwork. That is not what sells houses. Being out there, meeting people, talking to people, traveling, networking, talking to other agents, developing relationships. That is the core of what makes a real estate agent ultimately successful. It's not because they know the comps or can, write a contract effectively.
Mm-hmm.
So it's getting those back end systems in place, then hiring, the right team. Obviously you start with an assistant, then you go into a marketing person. Then depending on the level of inventory you have, you start building out agents to help navigate bringing in more business for the team. And then eventually you get to the place where you need a Cody and you hire a CEO so that you can be out in the field, because I certainly cannot be in front of the computer navigating what that back end looks like, particularly when you've got 20 plus agents that are working under you and over $500 million in listings.
I love how well-rounded you are.
Oh, I don't know about well-rounded.
No, you are. When we got put next to each other at dinner at our beloved Diggy's house, I was like, this woman's beautiful. What's her deal? And then you started like just dropping all these facts and these business statistics. And I was like, let's go. And then she's like, I freaking badass horse rider and I love ranches. And I was like, all right, that's
definitely, yeah, the horse ranch thing is definitely on the board for what's in my future.
I can see that.
It's a great, great love of mine, and it's something that like fills my cup.
Uh-huh.
And I get to experience it by way of my daughter, who loves riding and is a competitive jumper, but I would like that back in my everyday life. I want horses on my property the way I grew up. I want to start giving back to myself in that way so that I can still do what I do and get out there and hustle and take care of people's real estate needs.
What were you like in high school? Because I was thinking about this. I am so glad that I was like chubby and not like super popular and a little dumb in high school. Because all the guys who peaked, I'm like, they're not doing great now.
I definitely did not peak in high school. I was voted class clown.
Funny girl.
I was like tiny when I entered the 9th grade. I was at a new school. I really didn't know anybody, and I had a big personality even then, but I was like 5'1", and I found my way, and I found my way by having a big personality and using my sense of humor to connect with people, and that landed. But I wouldn't say I was popular, but I wasn't, the prettiest girl. I was a different type. And I was never a cheerleader. Like, I did all things,
Beating to your own drum.
I always marched to the beat of my own drum, and then really started to kind of come into my own post-college. And I also had a great time at USC. I'm not going to kid a kid there. Social chair there. I definitely stretched the limits of what is acceptable as a freshman in a sorority. Kappa Alpha Theta. Thank you for still having me.
Did you get some scoldings?
Yeah, I mean, they tried to kick me out a couple times, but then I think, as an adult, they're like, oh, she ended up turning out okay. We definitely
yeah, you want to be a donor?
Yeah, we definitely still support her. But, I think going through a lot of that stuff and, sort of fighting for yourself as, from the time that I was a kid until I was, 25, ended up being the route I was supposed to take. I was never supposed to be the best student. I was, I got okay grades. For me, it was always about connecting with people, and it served me, and here we are 49 years later, and I feel like I'm probably in one of the best places I've ever been, financially, physically. I feel good about myself. I work on that 6-pack every day, and I'm proud of that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think more women should not give up that sentiment that it's not over once you hit 30 or 35. I think times are different. I think women want to be more successful. I think they don't want to get married at 29 anymore. They sometimes don't want to get married by 40. They're having babies on their own. They're building businesses. They're entrepreneurs. They're successful as shit. And I think that's setting the groundwork for like younger generations to even be 10 times as successful as we are. But that, again, it goes back to us kind of elevating each other, supporting each other, building businesses together, connecting other women in your world, and being sort of positive.
That's really well said, Tracy.
Thanks.
You went and got your financial independence through real estate, which is incredible. What's been your biggest year of sales?
Just over $300 million in 2021. That was before I built my team in Texas. My biggest career sale to date was $56.5 million. This year, we're looking to do closer to $1 billion in sales, which I think is plausible between Texas and California. I'd like to see my team in California do $500 million, and I'd like to see my Texas team, which is arguably much bigger, $500 million. That's the goal.
Let's go. And then you also got to pursue this like acting thing, right? Like that came back around with $1 Million Listings.
Yeah, it was.
That's kind of crazy, right?
It was very crazy.
Were you seeking that out and pursuing that? Or
No,
it came to you?
It came to me. I was showing a property to a client, and Josh Altman called me about 3-4 hours before the showing, and he said, I forgot to tell you, they're filming this for the show I'm on called $1 Million Listing. And I'm like, bro, like heads up, like I don't even have like makeup on. Like I want to be cute at least if I'm gonna be on the show. And
makeup is kind of cute sometimes.
I mean, not when you're on TV.
Okay, fair. You know more about this than I do, but I like the natural look.
I'm down with natural. I'm natural all the time, except when I'm on camera. Okay. So anyway, Josh and I show up, and Josh and I have a natural chemistry, and kind of funny banter together anyway. And so anyway, I appeared on that show, and my client ended up writing an offer on it. So we ended up shooting a couple of more scenes together, in which were pretty dynamic scenes. And I think they appreciated that there was a woman kind of giving the king of the castle a little bit of shit.
Hey,
and so I got the call, and they said, would you be interested in talking to us further about being the first woman on $1 Million Listing? And at first I was like, no. Because I had been offered a few reality opportunities in years prior to that, 10 years prior. And that was not a time, 10 years, before I started the show where, being on a reality show served your businesses. Now, in certain formats, it can serve your business incredibly. And it did exactly that for me. I mean, it exposed me to the real estate community on a national level, brought different opportunities outside of real estate to me, in addition to obviously feeling like being a woman on a show that was dominated by men for, it was on for 10 seasons. And there was no woman representing the community on a very successful show, and that was a problem. So I was really excited.
That's a huge opportunity.
Once I made the leap, once I took the leap of faith to do it, I was incredibly excited about it.
What was your experience with it? Like when you obviously a lot, right? But when you kind of think back to it, what did it give to you?
I remember when I first started, I was struggling in my marriage. He wasn't happy that I was doing the show. That was a really
get these camera people out of our bedroom.
Yeah, it was a really challenging year for me in terms of navigating that, and ultimately I filed for divorce at the end of shooting that season. I think that first year for me was difficult. It was a lot of, we're taking a chance on a woman and she needs to be boss enough. And hopefully she is, because she's got to stand next to these other boss guys. And I was like, if you just let me be, I think you'll fucking figure out that I'm boss enough. Like, you don't have to fucking coach me.
Yeah. I think the best gift you can give somebody is the space for them to be themselves.
Yeah.
And the encouragement.
And I had a difficult producer at that time that was the supervising producer for that season. And then we got someone new in there. And since then, the last couple of seasons have been done by women showrunners, which has been amazing for me because they just understand intrinsically about what I can bring to the table, on the show. And so that was been really, really fun to be a part of it. And in terms of the growth in my business and the recognition and people, watching me and saying, I really enjoyed the way you handled this particular client. It's why I called. I feel like you're the right fit for me and my home. And that, you can't pay for that kind of advertising. You just can't. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful to Bravo. I'm grateful to, World of Wonder, the production company that took a chance on me, and, more to come. I mean, we're in the midst of hopefully landing ourselves a new show. We'll see.
If you're selling $56 million houses, you've probably ended up at some really fun parties.
I've been to my fair share of a few fun parties. I have my most fun, not in LA though.
Where?
I am my best self on vacation.
Well, that's because you grew up here. You probably just have these notions of who you have to be here potentially.
Well, I think also it's such a rat race here, and I grew up here, so I have a lot of friends and a lot of different circles of friends that I love, respect, and those are the people that I want to give my free time to. If my friends are throwing a party, I am there with bells on, first girl through the door, glass of tequila in hand, let's go. And that's a time for me to shake it off a little bit and spend time with people that I care about. I don't really need to go to a Grammy party or an Academy, a global,
It feels stuffy, right?
It's not what excites me.
What are you looking for in a romantic partner?
Oh, someone who is incredibly confident, loyal, funny, someone that I admire, whether it's their work ethic or their emotional intelligence. I want to look up to you. I want you to bring things to the table that I don't. And adventurous, as much as I wish I could be more spontaneous, I love that in someone else. And I want to be taken care of for once, and I don't mean financially. I just mean...
Do they need to be richer than you?
It'd be nice. I'm not going to lie.
What is it? You want the jet rides or what? I mean, because you're pretty rich, Tracy.
I don't have a jet yet.
Is that the missing piece?
No, I'm kidding. I mean, listen, all of those things are wonderful. Is it the reason I'm going to be with someone? No. I've tried, I've gone out with a few people in the last year and a half that I've been single that, obviously are financially incredibly secure and have, different opportunities, and, that they might be able to present to me. But if I don't have an organic, connection with you, where I want to be around you. I don't care if it's a G6 or a yacht.
It's numb. It's empty.
I can't force something that doesn't exist for a plane ride. It's just not who I am.
It's not worth it. It's not worth your time.
Nope.
You're a huge supporter of the LGBTQ community,
yeah.
right? Your team, your friends.
Love the gays.
You do love the gays.
Yeah. I mean, that should, by the way, make any man that hangs out with me or is my boyfriend comfortable, I think. I'm
You have a
surrounded
lot
by
of gay
gays
friends.
all
You
the
really
time.
are.
I love people who are authentic, sexually, organically who they are, and I celebrate that. So I am all for the LGBTQ+.
What's next for you?
You know, right now I'm building, and I feel like I'm building something really big that I haven't been this excited about what I do in a long time. So the next couple of years is going to be about building this business. I'd like to focus on Texas. I'd like to see the new show I'm pitching on the air. I'd like to bring an awareness to that state that I think has been sort of misinformed on a national scale. You know, people's perception of Texas is not what it is, and it's an incredibly diverse state with some really great people, some really great property. So I'd like to focus on that, build. And, you know, who knows what's to come? Maybe a furniture line down the road.
Your house
really,
is beautiful. When I stepped into it, I just feel so like zen. It's like a one hotel, but like on steroids.
You know what's
so
so funny?
Compliment.
Oh, you're so sweet. I change my design like ethos every few years. Like I was very much in a place in my life. I had, you know, gone through my divorce. I bought this house and I knew exactly what I wanted it to be. And fortunately, I had help from my good friend Kara, who's an incredible designer.
Hi, Kara.
Hi, Kara. Shout out. You know, help me execute that. And, you know, in the next couple of years, that might change. I really like to think forward when it comes to design. And I like to be inspired when I walk into my home. And I'm not necessarily inspired by the same thing over and over and over again. I want to keep growing and keep learning and keep discovering new ways to live, new ways to make, you know, my home feel like a sanctuary. And for now, right now, it is definitely giving sanctuary, neutral, calm
giving,
vibes.
slaying, all the things.
Yeah.
That's important. You want to feel safe.
Totally.
Home. And it's not easy.
No, not now.
My biggest fear is like
not now, not in 2025.
It's like buying everything and then like getting it all in there. It takes 6 months. It costs $1 million, and then it gets in there and like the vibe's off.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, what do I do now?
Yeah. No, I mean, right now it's great, but I definitely can see, you know, making some different choices, maybe buying a ranch in Texas and, you know, hopefully finding, you know, the person that is meant to be with me in this next phase of my life.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm rooting you on.
Thank you, baby.
When I called you and I said, will you please come on the podcast?
Duh.
And you, in a half a second, you were like, I'm in.
Of course.
It meant so much to me, and everything you're doing for women to just be more confident, to be more bold, chasing $1 billion in sales this year, your new chapter with Compass, I'm rooting you on so hard.
Thank you. I
can't
really
wait to see it
appreciate it.
happen.
And you're incredible to sit across from. So kudos to you on this podcast. You're really dynamic.
Thank you, Tracy.
You're
Until next
welcome.
time. That's it. Thank you so much for tuning in to Permission to Shine, the podcast dedicated to sharing the most humble, inspiring stories that I know you will love. Again, this is Andrew Nemani. I appreciate you tuning in. As always, please reach out, please follow on Instagram, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, Spotify, Apple. Leave us your thoughts. Let us know who you want as a future guest or what's your takeaways from this conversation. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great, great week.